Thierry Fab from the Challenge magazine. I'm very pleased to chair this particular roundtable discussion on the globalization and territories topic. There will be two specific business cases, Vinci and Amazon, that are going to detail what they can do on our territories, across our territories. And the common point here between these two companies is that sometimes, or even fairly often, they are criticized on a number of projects. Particularly, I'm thinking about Amazon for the opening of the distribution centers. I'm thinking about Vinci with its projects for the highways. And they have to respond to a number of questions. And I think it is interesting that they should be here with us today to meet all these criticisms and to tell us what they can do for the development of territories. So I think we'll have to detail these topics, and to get the ball rolling, I'd like to give the floor to Thierry Cotel, who's the elected representative from this region, and also the referee for these various investment projects, because he's looking at all these companies that wants to set up in here locally, and there's also associations that are criticizing these particular locations or companies rather. So Pierre Cotel is going to set the scene, particularly on stage, regarding the reindustrialization, because this is the main practical topic, how these companies can participate in the start of the reindustrialization of this country following 20 or 30 years of destructions of jobs. Thierry Cotel, you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you for this particular debate, who's a bit specific between an elected representative and two presidents of companies that are major companies and operating very often with a lot of criticisms, particularly regarding the energy transition. So I'd like to get started by talking about reindustrialization, because I think that's an essential part of what has to be done in all respects, not only to create jobs, but also to support this energy transition. And I'd like each time that we are talking about a topic like this one, we should have a focus which would be sufficiently ample or large, particularly on the climate, the way we feel it locally, but we want to see also the global effects, particularly of globalizations, the way we've seen it, with a model which has appeared over time as the China being the world lab of plant, where we import massively from, and which is not a token of ecological or environmental solution. So reindustrialization is to reconquer products that we are consuming, that we are importing, and this is an essential issue for a country and also more generally for the world. And there's this particular phenomenon and also the land use, and we are very much aware of this in Occitania, because reindustrializing means that you should also have a look at the territories and also break the model that we've been knowing for a long time, which is a world phenomenon where we focus all the wealth and all the productions and all the economic development on major metropolis to the detriment of the rural areas. And we have two metropolises in this area which are extremely attractive, like Montpellier and Toulouse. And over the last years, they've been developing a lot with all the negative elements in terms of jobs, not necessarily, but in terms rather of housing, also the pollution that is, and also traffic jams. And so we are concentrating the wealth on a number of metropolises to the detriment of the territories. And we want to bring momentum to the medium-sized cities. And as we said in the various top debates, we want to revitalize what existed before, what used to exist, with a lot of industrial niche that would have to be used, because we talked about the non-artificialization of the soil. And I think here there's a lot to do to reconstruct, reindustrialize in areas that were left out for many years. And in Occitania, we have specific tools that are encouraging the companies that want to get set up shop in medium-sized companies on zones that are used to be industrial land in order to recreate jobs and without, for all that, artificializing more than it should be done. Thank you very much. It gives me a good transition for Frédéric Duval. You are head of Amazon France. So let us not hide behind our fingers. Frankly, you are very often criticized for the way you work in a number of areas, and I can remember what you did in Rouen, Belfort, and in Lyon. I think you have a problem with the justice. So you set up shop, and I'm sure you're going to create jobs, but then people don't want you. And then afterwards, there are studies that have been conducted concerning the e-commerce, showing that there were loss of 80,000 jobs over the last 10 years. So what sort of answer can you provide in front of all these criticisms? What is your assessment of the evaluation about all these openings in France and the impact on employment and on local resources? Well, good morning, and thank you for these questions. Thank you for inviting me. And I'd like to say that in France we have invested massively, 16 billion euros over the last years, and we have created 35 sites in France that are creating jobs, because we have 20,000 contracts, full-time contracts with the Amazon. These are jobs with the Amazon company. So, and on top of that, we are also giving the opportunities to entrepreneurs to participate in this particular development and enrich it as well. 13 small and medium-sized companies are all collaborating with us, and we're talking about relocation and development of the economic activity. Now, these small and medium-sized companies are exporting throughout Europe, and the figure that we have is that they export 20 billion euros over the last 2 years. And then afterwards, you have the indirect jobs that are associated with our indirect activity, which is that of the upstream supply chain and downstream. Now, there we create a lot of jobs. And in the end, the Amazon company has created 100,000 jobs in France. And the e-commerce survey figures are not correct, because they do not provide a true picture, because they do not take into account, first, of the development we've referred to, and also they do not take into account the delivery to the customer, a delivery which is improving the environmental experience and the impact of the company. And also these deliveries are such that all the studies have shown, Oliver Wyman and others, that the e-commerce is creating more, even the same amount of jobs as the whole retail commerce. Now, but then why? Economists like one who worked with France Stratégie was saying just the reverse. How do you explain, how do you account for the opposition you find in all the territories? There's not so much opposition, actually, because the French are more and more joining our services and coming onto our sites and using it. So be it in the city, in rural areas, be it in the small and medium-sized companies that that had forgotten the opportunity of the e-commerce, and they've discovered it during the COVID period, which was one way of dampening the loss of activities. They found that, well, the perception saying that the French don't want Amazon. Well, they do want Amazon, and very recently we just set up shop in the Metz area in eastern France, and the elected representatives, the inhabitants, the local entrepreneurs are all in favor, or in line with this particular. We created more than 4,000 jobs, long contract jobs. 97% of all the persons that have been surveyed would say that they've seen a great improvement with the creation of Amazon sites in their area. We've seen some companies that got created because of our presence. It's about 14 companies. It's a very small figure, but it's improving, and we can see the region is revitalized thanks to this particular presence. And because these people were out of these 4,000 people, 60% were on long duration jobless situation. So you have to see things in the right way, because if we come in an area, we're welcome. And I think that France is a land which is extremely dynamic locally, with elected representatives that are very dynamic, and they want to get some activity for the land. And there was a recent change, because I've noted that you also had a communication offensive launched. In other words, when we look at the 3 last years, there was a lot of opposition, and I can see that you launched some consultant who launched a study. You were on the offensive because you want people to know what you do. I think it is very important, yes, to do things and also to make it known, because I think it's good to know that 13% of the small SMEs will sell through Amazon, and they are developing through this. And they created 35,000 jobs. And I think it's important to say that as well, because these companies are very modest. It's about 1, 2, 3 employees. And thanks to us, they will be able to stay in the city center, for example. And they will still be selling their goods to French customers as well, in boutiques from the area, and but also clients in Italy, Spain, or other countries. So it's very important to say that. Now, also the accusation of desertifying these city centers. If you have a warehouse in the city center, is it true that it's going to be very detrimental to the city center? Can you answer that question? Well, let's look at the 40 last years, and you will recognize what I'm saying, all of you. Over the last 40 years, we have set up at the periphery, in the suburbs, we've set up some shops with, I can cite, well, there are furniture or shoe stores, and we made sure that the public who was in the city center would go outside to these particular places. And we added as well that the car park in the city center has to be paid, whereas it's free if you go outside the city. And then we reduced the size of the roads in the city, or streets in the city center. We have beautiful city centers, and it's very pleasant to be in the city center. I'm not saying anything against that. But then the traffic in the city center has decreased through the action of the city centers. Now, the number of shops has diminished as well. Now, the e-commerce is an ally. E-commerce should enable boutiques that are in the city center to sell in the city center, whilst maintaining an activity throughout France across through sites, e-commerce sites. It's true for Amazon, for Fnac, for Cdiscounts, and for many other websites that are windows enabling small entities from the city center to sell. And this is the case. And at Valoris, the crystal, the glass crafts do that. And there you get some bakers who are doing that. Plenty of activities are doing that. It's thanks to this complementarity between an activity in the city center and an online activity that we will be able to preserve the vitality of our cities. Thank you. Well, let's move to you, Mr. Copé. You are with Vinci Autoroute and highways, and just like Mr. Deval, you have a corporate image problem, because the image for the highway, it's a place where you get pollution from transport. These are companies that are accused of earning a lot of money and increasing their tariffs too much. So what about communicating in front of all these criticisms? The first topic I'd like to talk about with you is your environmental project, because you are the place where pollution occurs, and you want to become environmentally friendly and spearheading the energy transition. When I saw that in Challenge magazine, I was a little bit surprised. It's paradoxical. Could you explain how you account for that? How are you going to do that? Oh, we have a visit, haven't we? They want to talk for 5 minutes and then they leave. So again, if you could be concise. You saw there was a conference. Mr. Copé is answering a question, and you You didn't enable him to speak. So we trust you. You have 5 minutes, okay? Thank you. Well, we interrupt this summit because we want to convey a message. This summit is a disaster, it's a disgrace, because we are Extinction Rebellion, and it will oppose this as long as actions will not be made to fight climate change and the destruction of the living. We will not let you tell that you are companies that you are going for the extinction of our species. Aren't you afraid? These are the presidents of Pierre Fabre and Vincent Autoroute, Amazon. You are representing Google, Amazon, Exxon, LVMH, Pfizer. You're talking about the Common Good Summit, but it's not the case. It's a disgrace. It's a shame. How can you possibly talk about saving the common good when you are pushing for the construction of the highway A69, which is going to artificialize these rural lands with an objective of zero, has been planned. And Vincent, you are constructing these highways, and you're making so much money on that. When you are robbing thousands of cubic waters, whereas the water table is disappearing, when you are expropriating farmers in order to construct a highway which is enabling us, or enabling the drivers to save only 12 minutes, whereas all the small roads cannot be used. And you talk about democracy, but I'm asking you, where is democracy when you want to construct a highway which has been surveyed where 87% of the people is against it? LVMH, can you talk about saving the common good and decarbonation when your boss is Mr. Bernard Arnault, when he's issuing so much CO2 that it takes about 20 years for a common worker to use that much? What about Jeff Bezos, who's got so much money that he could really fight against the famine in the world? How can you possibly enrich yourself by exploiting millions of people around the globe with children without hesitating to sacrifice their capital? And we'll never forget about all the people that died in your warehouse. This is a masquerade of lethal companies that want to have a good ecolo-compatible image. As you want to say that ExxonMobil is a green company, this is a disgrace. This is a lie, and you just want to line your pockets. But we are not, you are aware, this is why we wanted to come. And with this Extinction Rebellion, we want to say to you that you are criminals and your profits are better than our lives. But you should assume what you are doing and don't talk about the common good. We will not let you lie more than that.
Well, please, may I say one word? You asked 5 minutes. That's over. Well, we have got the habit to coming year after year, and we will go on coming and talk here, because you cannot pretend you are working to the benefit of common good. You are doing exactly the contrary. Whatever you may think, whatever we may do, you are exploiting thousands and millions of people, and you are working to the detriment of people on the planet, and you are causing the extinction, the mass extinction of the future generations, and you have negated the climate crisis for years and years and decades. Here is what you call societal responsibility. You have, although you end by the by the way, you have got the answers to all this. You know that electric cars are not the solutions. You know how to decarbonate. You know that we have to change the model altogether, that we have to stop building on the land and on the plots. And you know that it's not going to bring anything positive if you build everywhere, build premier facilities, equipment, factory, etc. You are hiding the actual truth, and you are organizing this type of events to convince people that you are doing the right thing. In fact, you are working you are working to destroy, in order to destroy our mankind. I've been thinking of your children, grandchildren. Climate danger is the climate danger is today, it's not tomorrow. History is looking at us. You'll be judged by history if you don't stop right now, today. Your children will never forgive you if our species does survive the climate crisis. You'll be considered as the worst dictators of mankind because you have been working to destroy the living. And you said that it was necessary to open further dialogues with the activists, but we want actions now, right now. The planet, the Earth, cannot wait another second. We must change this system, which is altogether rotten. And we won't be doing this thanks to and with Amazon. We have to go on uprising our next of kin, and we'll never let you leave you in peace. Eh ben, mon Dieu, c'est dur, hein?
Oui, c'est
Ben,
très
c'est
dur,
dur,
très
c'est
dur,
lourd.
très dur.
C'est très lourd de sens. C'est très... Et c'est qu'elle s'appelle? Elle s'appelle comment le...
Extinction, extinction, je sais plus quoi. Extinction
D'accord.
de quelque
C'est
chose.
juste pour savoir.
Il y a extinction dedans, il y a notre mot après.
Extinction. Would you kindly listen to us for a minute? Ah, tu vois, je l'ai séduit arriver. Why aren't you staying for a while to listen to Mr. Grolier? Well, no dialogue. This is a pity. We tried to give you the floor. We would have liked them to listen to Christian, who is working on this topic. In 2 minutes, would you accept to repeat what you said yesterday on this core? And then we will resume our work. Je me disais un truc. Well, what has just happened does illustrate what is happening in our societies these days, with very strong, abrupt disagreements among people. We all agree on the fact that there are huge challenges these days, and they'll have to be uptaken. How to take them up to the benefit of our future generations. Of course, we have got our propositions, and the propositions made by Extinction Rebellion differ, but no one today is able to say, both in France and elsewhere throughout the world, what can be done. We know about the targets. We know that we have to decrease carbon emissions. We know that we have to decarbonate. We know that there is a will at state authorities level. We know that at state authorities level, it's very difficult to pinpoint the actual efficient possible solutions. So in this type of event, as the Common Good Summit, we try and suggest some solutions. We are not denying our responsibilities at all, but we are responsible. We are all responsible, you and me, when driving to go to work. I mean, Amazon and Vinci Autoroute are not the only ones responsible and accountable for what is going on. Each of us is being accountable and responsible for what is going on. We have been discussing, commenting on these issues in a very honest manner yesterday and today too. We have plenty of propositions. They may be, they may have more wide scope, less small scope. They may be more interesting than others, etc., etc. They are not all equal in value and in scope, but they have been discussed yesterday. They are being discussed this morning, and this is already a starting point. And I'm sure we will have further opportunities to go on discussing these problems at TSE. TSE has got 150 scientists, researchers dedicated to these matters, scientific, economic, societal issues, and they work in order to help and improve the world to the benefit of people, households, and companies. Thank you very much.
Merci. Alors, merci beaucoup. Donc, Pierre Coppet, on va reprendre dans le calme.
Yeah. Just one word on your decarbonation project, and one word on Extinction Rebellion and similar entities. Well, of course, they have been very straightforward. Of course, they have been quite aggressive. I'm sorry they didn't accept a dialogue with us, but we have got a responsibility. We must all accept dialogues and any type of dialogue and discussion. We must be in a capacity to listen to other people's ideas and opinions. But I feel sorry we haven't been able to talk to them, to talk with them. Well, all this being said, you did invite me to address the decarbonation issue and how roads can contribute to this, even if it's counterintuitive. May I just go back to basics, so to speak. We have got a network of 1 million kilometers roads in France. There is a mix of mobility, which means that 87% of transport is road transport. And when, home to work and work to home transport is serviced by road transport, up to 85%. And I would like transport policies to start from these actual figures and to clearly understand that if people drive their car and if the freight in France is mainly road freight and not railways driven, so to speak, it's because there is no other possible solutions. So, this being said, road transport accounts for two-thirds of carbon emissions in France these days. So we have to really speed up the introduction of decarbonated vehicles and cars, deploying top-up stations for electrical cars. And we must also, quite interesting, by the way, for Toulouse, try and consider the road network as a network which can host different types of transport. We have to fight car transport as the unique single possible transport. We have to encourage car sharing, just to name this solution. But we also have to develop car parks dedicated to car sharing, and we also have to extend multimodal transport in conurbations. Let's keep in mind that in order to have valuable transport facilities, let's not forget that transport increases by 15% in most yearly in most conurbations. We have to take on board the fact that transport needs do increase, and in Toulouse, for instance, if I'm right, the growth is 10-15% a year. So let's use the existing infrastructures. They are part of our common good. Let's not forget it. We have to better use the existing infrastructures and to optimize them. Let's privilege access. Let's facilitate, access to the city centers. Let's have more buses in order to make home to work and work to home transport easier for people, for the workers. Let's try and be practical, and and this will help and decarbonate transport. We very well understand your diagnosis, how to speed up the process. You are saying that we will need more and more stations to load the batteries, car batteries. Who should be in charge of this? Well, we have got 10,000 kilometers motorways, 1 million kilometers roadways in France, and this, of course, requires huge investments by all the possible funding bodies or coming from taxes or tolls. But in order to deploy the electrical batteries loading stations, you have to do a lot. That is, you have to bring the power to the place, and you have to take on board the fact that it takes up to 30 minutes, even much more, for a car to be reloaded. That means some more constraints, of course. And these constraints will even be worse when the electrical car park increases. And I think we could refer to what has been lately discussed by public authorities, climate change and transition means investing. hugely. And if we want to succeed in this respect, we have to mobilize all the funding, both private and public capacities, and wherever they may come from, the state or the business world and companies. I'd like to recall that the policies related to infrastructures is under the umbrella of the state. Decisions are made according to public procedures. The companies have not their say in all this. Of course, we can turn to the companies for the operational side of things, but the decision itself is a sovereign decision made by the state authorities within the framework of highly democratic approach and decisions and approaches. Well, some people often argue and say that your profits are too high. I'm thinking here of a report written by a member of the French Senate. What do you say to this? How do you react? Well, I always say the same. That no one understands what we are doing and how we are doing things. We are not able to explain the model, perhaps. That may be our mistake. But I was saying that investing in infrastructures means investing huge lumps of money. When you ask our type of structure, entity, what we call a concession in French and in France, we have to work we have to spend quite a lot of time investing without earning a penny, and then we will have to refund, of course, the loans made to invest. So, I mean, it's something you have to take into account. In fact, we are meant to refund our investments in a limited period of time. Let's not forget this. And at the end of the life of the infrastructure you have built, the infrastructure does belong to the state, and we have nothing left, so to speak. We are using the money which is granted to us to refund the investments we have to make to develop the networks, in a nutshell, to make it clear to our foreign friends. English-speaking friends. Now, Mr. Cotel, well, companies are businesses. They are meant to make profit. Whatever you may think about it, that's their main goal. And when I say this, I mean, let's not be mistaken, and let's not talk of a citizen business or company. What does that mean, by the way? A company has to earn money. Of course, this doesn't mean that you must not have a social dialogue in a company. But when well, of course, you have got, well, most companies are going to tell you that they are creating jobs, etc., etc. They do not discard social responsibility, but their first goal is to make money, to earn money. And something should be made clear to the populations, to the people. Let's take the example of Amazon, for instance. The system is based on huge imports of products coming from abroad and coming from what I call the China factory. I know of a friend who offers a small gift perks to his wife regularly, and these small gifts do come from China. And this raises a real issue, that of immediate crave, actually, crave for something. Do we have to respond to this crave? And as a citizen, I have made choices, personal choices, political choices too. The situation is so different today. There is hardly any regulation left. We are heading for more and more liberal measures, liberal moves. And I think that people have to get involved, to personally be involved in the long term. And it's really possible to act, to have an impact, if we can discuss and if we can help and change some regulations, some existing regulations. Another 5 minutes for the question in the hall. What about jobs created, Mr. Duval? Are these jobs sustainable? This gives me the opportunity to ask you questions on the working conditions at Amazon. There have been a few disputes in France on this score. Well, I think we hear a lot of we can hear a lot around, actually. We do create permanent jobs, 20,000 jobs with unlimited duration, and people are staying with us. IFOP conducted a survey earlier this year. 80% of the people working with Amazon recommend their next of kin to come and work with us, and they're all willing to stay for years. So that's a result with us. The average in France is 60%. So that means people are happy to be with us. And we have got agreements with the main 5 trade unions on quality at work, greeted by 90% of the people in the company. We have got an agreement on the work of disabled people. We have just signed this agreement. We have signed the NAOs with 4 trade unions out of 5. That means many people are just false ideas, actually, on the actual situation. What is happening now started when I first joined the company, that is to say 15 years. So people are sometimes telling lies. What about the motorway between Castres and Toulouse? Some people are interested in this. How do you understand the opposition against this project? There was a similar project in Strasbourg, and there were a lot of arguing about it. Well, it's not up to me to solve this type of problem. Let's not fall into the pitfall of caricatures. This project is a state project, that of the Castres-Toulouse motorway. It has first to be officially declared as being of public interest. It takes a very long time. This project dates back to 40 years ago, and it's been discussed, studied within the framework of official procedures, and then the government decided. The authorization was given has been given, not to Vinci actually. So what else? What else? But any clue why is there such an hindrance to the project among the population? What about your behavior? Well, how did you react to these youngsters who came and who didn't want to start the dialogue with you? Well, we gave them the floor, and then they left. We tried to be open-minded. I hope it worked, at least partly. Now, I don't really understand why you don't give your opinion on this, on both cases, the Strasbourg case and the Toulouse case. Why did it take so long? I've been recently said that no one actually knew that it was much safer to drive on a motorway than on a national road, for instance. Well, quite simply, if I may. But I can't really answer 50 questions in one. Well, quite clearly, motorways are 5 times as secure as a national road. And a motorway may have an impact on water resources, on the environment, but the impact of a motorway will be much more positive than the impact you have along roadways which date back to the Roman times, a period when people were not thinking of the environment protection. And there is also a large amount of compensation measures, you know, to try and balance out the problems. And once again, this motorway around Strasbourg and the motorway from to Toulouse and Castres have been designed, I mean, in terms of political will by the authorities, by the political authorities, and they do not downgrade the quality of the air. We are building them by abiding by all the existing constraints, and we have got very high standards. There are several people in the hall who are prime contractors with Vinci and who are investing huge amounts of money, several millions euros per year, and who spend a huge amount of their time talking to the citizens, talking to the locally elected people. But may I remind, it's for the second or 10th time, this is the state responsibility. It's a state responsibility here which is being involved.
Merci à tous pour ce débat sportif.
Thank you very much for this discussion which has come to an end and which has been successful for all the havoc we have had.